Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This episode, we'll be talking MLS Cup and Ronaldo and the good nurse and U.S. men's national team backline preview, U.S. men's national team injury crisis, ? Leeds America, Liga MX ticket prices, Messi, NWSL, and so much more. But first, joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how you doing on this Monday, October 31st in the year 2022? Ooh, Halloween.
I am doing very well, although it's been a quiet Halloween weekend for me. I no longer go trick-or-treating. Nobody came to my place, so...
Well, they wouldn't come to your place yet because we're recording this on Monday. Tonight is Halloween.
Oh, tonight is Halloween.
Jesus.
Although there were people out and about in costumes.
Well, it was the weekend, and so the Halloween parties were this weekend. So yes, people were out and about at the parties. But the official Halloween, in which the kids will be coming to your door, will be tonight. And God forbid you're a Grinch or anything like that. I'm mixing holidays there.
I haven't bought any candy yet, so I apparently need to rush out and do that.
If you were to buy some, and I'm going to make sure that you do for everyone that's listening. What are you getting? What would you give out?
Hershey Kisses. Those seem to be popular, right?
They are, but you better buy enough of them. You're not going to be that guy that gives out one Hershey Kiss, right?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
Okay, well, you should think about it because you don't want to be that dark house bah humbug type of person in the neighborhood. When we get done with this, I will be going and I will be getting some candy and some stuff to put outside the door to indicate that yes, we are participating in the festivities. You don't have to participate, but if you want to be a stick in the mud, that's fine. Do you remember back in the day when you don't still go trick or treating? I'm assuming, but back in the day, what you used to dress up as?
Zorro.
Really?
For several years there. Just because I bought it one year
and it's easy.
And it was easy, and then I was too lazy in subsequent years to do anything else, so it just became my go-to.
My mom has a book full of pictures of her with people dressed up as me, and she's gotten them over the years, and there's a lot of pictures of people, and usually it happens at games and stuff like that, but inevitably when it comes to Halloween, people will send me or her pictures of them dressed up as the 94 version because it's easy because you can get a red wig and you can do the red goatee, and if you got yourself a denim or a faux denim jersey from that, you can do that. So I will be handing out candy, and I'll be handing as much as I possibly can because we don't get a lot of trick-or-treaters, but the ones that come, they get treated very, very nicely. All right, well, if like I said, we're recording this on Monday, so I hope everybody's having an enjoyable Halloween weekend, and then obviously Halloween night tonight. Be good, be careful, and be kind. Did you watch anything, my friend?
This was the first weekend in which my impending trip to Qatar started to affect my television choices.
Ooh.
Because season 2 of The White Lotus got underway on HBO, and normally I would have been all over that, but I'm going to hold off because I don't want to get interrupted, and so I'm going to wait to binge it when I get back. Also, a new season of The Crown is about to come out on Netflix, and I think similarly I'm going to hold off on that as well. So I think we've reached that point of where, stopping watching any new television.
And you're anticipating that your workload is going to be such that you couldn't start it, so you don't want to kind of, I guess, break the seal, if you will, and spoil it and cut it off where you watch half of now and then half when you get back.
I have come to this terrible realization that Andor, which I'm quite invested in, it's not going to be over before I leave. There's still going to be 2 episodes left, so I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that, but...
Oh, boy. I watched The Good Nurse. It's new, I think, on Netflix. It came out this year. It's a crime drama starring Jessica Chastain, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, but you will have seen this guy in a bunch of stuff. Eddie Redmayne? Anyway,
sure, yeah.
Is that right? Both very, very good, interesting movie, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Could have been better, but I give it a 7.5, which is quality at this point when it comes to a night of viewing on Netflix or any other streaming platform out there. All right, ready to light the scandal?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to start out with a bunch of different things here, and we wanted to take the first segment to go right to the national team. We are, as I said, are recording on Monday. And Monday the 31st. 3 weeks from today, Mosse, the United States takes on Wales. Less than 3 weeks now, the actual World Cup starts. So, as you mentioned, it is upon us, and it is more and more pressing and therefore more and more interesting as to what is happening. And injuries, not just for the U.S. team, but for all teams right now, and for every player that has the potential to be on that plane to Qatar, are a big thing. And we talked a little bit about this last week, but it's fascinating to see the wheels starting to spin on players right now. And the injuries, and I'm using the quotations if you're not watching the show here, the injuries that are happening right now so close to the World Cup. And what would not be considered an injury and require time away from the game in, I guess, normal circumstances, being so close to the World Cup right now, I think it's not amazing. It's actually not even surprising that we are seeing more and more of these little injuries that in normal circumstances you just kind of play through, being taken much more seriously right now. So where should we start? Let's go from a U.S. perspective right now.
Well, we're going to focus on defenders and fullbacks today in terms of our positional breakdown, but we do want to go through all the different injuries that are causing some consternation among the U.S. fan base. Weston McKennie.
And a reminder, just before you get to it, Mosse, November 9th, the United States Soccer Federation will be dropping the roster. Okay, now there can be changes after that, but that's going to be basically the 26th. And as you'll mention here, Mosse, I think some of these players are going to be in real question whether they are going to be on that 26th.
Weston McKennie battling a thigh problem. Luca De La Torre out with a muscle tear. Matt Turner, groin injury, which caused him to miss Arsenal's last Europa League game, which is a shame because those are the few chances he gets to play. Josh Sargent, sidelined as well with a calf problem. And this one pertains to the conversation we're about to have about center backs. Chris Richards, still not back yet for Crystal Palace. They expect him to resume training with the rest of the team in the next 7 to 10 days. But yeah, none of these guys are out for the World Cup, but the timetable is such that it's making people nervous. It's cutting it a little close.
And look, we're not doctors. And as you know, Mosse, in this world and this age, the information that we get publicly from these clubs or these press officers and or the players themselves doesn't always match up with what the realities are behind the scenes. It could be better, it could be worse, and sometimes it is actually the truth as to what's going on. But we can only go with what they have given us. I do think that not all of these are created equally. Chris Richards, I think, is the most concerning relative to the national team because what we're about to talk about when it comes to the back line, and that he hasn't played in so long. This is obviously a serious injury. This isn't him holding back in order to be ready for the World Cup. This isn't his team, just being really, really cautious about him. This is obviously something that has set him back, and from a physical perspective, has inhibited his ability to actually perform. When it comes to Weston McKennie, look, we know that this is a year where he has suffered some major injuries. I don't think that this injury is going to preclude him from going to the World Cup, let alone playing in the World Cup. We know that he will run through a wall. And this smells to me like a player preparing for the World Cup. And look, again, I go back to Jurgen Klopp, all right? Loves to scream and yell about all the games and all the wear and tear on the players. So maybe, is this the worst thing in the world for a Weston McKennie to be out leading up to the World Cup where he can rest his body and mind and be fresh come that World Cup? Maybe that's a glass half full type of look at this type of situation. Luca De La Torre is a little more concerning. 3 weeks out, and obviously that is a major problem. And a muscle tear, that's worrisome, even that they would put that out, that it is an actual tear of the muscle. And look, they're young, they heal quickly, but you never know. Matt Turner, groin injuries are weird. They're kind of like a toe injury where you never really realize how much you use it in everything that you do until you actually tweak it. And we hope that it's just a tweak here. But to your point, that he's getting fewer games when he was already getting few games, that's not a great type of situation. Josh Sargent, a calf injury. And in the back of all these players' minds are, yeah, this is an injury, but do I take this injury and I make it worse and therefore really set myself back and possibly not miss the World Cup?
So shall we transition to our positional breakdown today?
Do you have anything to say about injuries? Do you think that people are sandbagging right now relative to the World Cup?
Absolutely. One case that's getting a lot of attention in Spain, and we'll talk about Barcelona later on the podcast, is Memphis Depay. He had an injury. He was out for a while. And as far as Barcelona are concerned, he's fine and should be back playing. And yet he's holding off and saying he doesn't feel quite fine yet. And now the Barcelona media is just straight up accusing him of not wanting to get re-injured. And he's already in World Cup mode.
There's an accusation where I can get behind what's being accused, not just the fact of it, but being angry about that. Look, you are paid, and in many cases we're talking about players that are paid a ridiculous amount of money. I don't begrudge them that. And they're not doing their job. In any other work environment, you would be severely reprimanded and or fired for not actually doing the job that is paying you the money because you're looking forward. However, you have a World Cup in November and December, and a week before the World Cup starts, you are playing club, which is unlike anything else before, where there's usually 2 or 3 weeks where they can bake that into getting into the fullest of health and form. Then this is going to happen. So as much as I can grumpy man this type of behavior, I get it. I understand. And again, the World Cup, I can't impress upon folks enough what this means to players, regardless of their status, regardless of how much money, regardless of how famous, regardless of where they're playing or what they have done in the past. The opportunity to represent your country in a World Cup, even in this unique circumstance of this World Cup, they are not going to do anything that is going to jeopardize that, including pissing off their teammates, club teammates, their club coach, and or the fans that they play for. It is too important and too valuable. All right, yes, let's go into the back line, the final of our well, wait, are we going to do goalkeepers at some point too in the future? All right, we'll do the goalkeepers in the future here, but this is the defensive version of our preview of national team players.
Right. So as we mentioned, you have Chris Richards, who, by the way, wasn't playing that much even when he was healthy. He's played a total of 45 minutes of Premier League football this season. So I would argue that move to Palace has been a disaster.
I mean, we're forcing it at this point, right, Mosse? When it comes to Chris Richards, I know that people looked at him as the hope and the belief that he was going to come good. But for this cycle right now, I just feel like we're going to put him and therefore the U.S. team in a position that is problematic just by throwing him in.
Yeah, there has been this feeling that deep down he's who Greg Berhalter would like to be starting alongside Walker Zimmerman, but to your point, those chances might be running out.
And it might test my formist fallacy call.
So that leaves Zimmerman and Long as the presumed starters if the World Cup started tomorrow. And with them, you have this issue of their inactivity because their teams got knocked out early in the MLS playoffs. And in Long's case,
a bad window. Yep.
Just his form in general has been poor, and so a lot of people
will not have played a game for a month.
Right.
Having bombed out of the playoffs. Yeah.
So some of the other options: Cameron Carter-Vickers, who is playing regularly for Celtic; Eric Palmer-Brown playing regularly for Troyes in Ligue 1. You have Mark McKenzie playing for Genk, and then we have to bring him up, Tim Ream. There still is this sentiment, people watching what he's doing week in, week out for Fulham, they can't believe that he's not going to go to Qatar. So I think those are the players we're looking at in that center back spot. So how do you see it right now?
I mean, I still see Walkerman and Long. I still see Greg Berhalter when he is assessing the situation, whether you agree with it or not. I think he takes into account the totality of the experience that he has had with a player, and not just what that player is doing in the moment. I'm not saying that form, and I have my thoughts about form, isn't part of the assessment. And a player playing well in the moment can give that player the advantage going forward. But if there were other players, first off, a lot of these players that we're talking about, when Eric Palmer-Brown and CCV and McKenzie and stuff like that, we have seen them with the national team. Okay, and it's not as if they've lit it up. And I'm not saying that Aaron Long has either, but I just think that when it comes down to it, and I'm not saying I even agree with it. And all of these players, including Tim Ream has his positives and negatives, just like everybody else. I just think ultimately unless there was somebody that was so good, and to your point, I think that they thought Chris Richards was going to be that player that when he started playing consistently was going to be just so far and away better than anybody else that there wasn't even going to be a question as to whether he was going to start for this team. But since that hasn't happened, and nobody else has really shown through the cycle that they have been great under Greg Berhalter and just grabbed that position after Miles Robinson went down and said, "This is mine," that, just pick one and go for it.
The position is in so much flux right now that Grant Wall recently even tweeted, "Are we sure Miles Robinson is definitely out? Is there any chance for him?" People are still holding out hope for that.
It is a pity. I mean, because that tandem of him and Zimmerman and the way they were yin and yang to each other, it would have been really, really nice to see. And there's nobody that's even come close to Miles Robinson in any of these players that we are talking about right now.
So I assume he takes 4 to the World Cup.
So
who would the 4 be?
All right. So Aaron Long. Yeah, I mean, Aaron Long, Walker Zimmerman, and then it's between, because I mean, as much as people may want to see Tim Ream, I don't see it happening for the reasons that we've talked about. It's not that he's not a good player. It's just Greg Berhalter feels that those challenges, especially physically and over the top and playing a high line and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be Vickers, and I think he likes McKenzie. So between Eric Palmer-Brown, I'll go with Eric Palmer-Brown.
So you're ruling out Richards at this point?
I mean, yeah, if he's not playing and now he's still. No, you're probably right. You're probably right. He's gonna take him and just. You think he's gonna take Richards over Eric Palmer-Brown? Right?
Again, we can caveat it because it's a medical situation we're not fully informed on. But let's say they check in on him in 7 to 10 days whenever they go to announce a squad, and he feels like he might be fit enough to play at the World Cup. Then I think he would find a place for him. If he's still not even close at that point, then yeah, you can't.
But what does fit to play in the World Cup mean? I mean, if he's still 10 days away from just training, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean he's even going to play a game.
Right.
So therefore, he will not have played a game for months on end. And very, very little time, and a major injury that obviously has kept him off. And yet I think that Greg Berhalter, I don't know why, sees something in him that the others don't have. And if there's even the slightest chance that Chris Richards can, for 90 minutes, be great in the way that he feels that he can be great, he's going to put him on that plane.
Yeah, I think it's Zimmerman, Long, Carter Vickers, and if Richards is healthy enough, Richards. If Richards can't play, then McKenzie gets that spot.
Yeah.
But I'll just say I would take Tim Ream. I'm in that game.
You would? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And not Eric Palmer-Brown.
Not Eric Palmer-Brown.
Okay. So you think McKenzie's good? That is a good call. I think he does like McKenzie. I think it's pretty obvious that it's not that he doesn't like him. I mean, he might like him very much. That from a Tim Ream perspective, I just don't think that's happening. All right.
At fullback, you have the presumed starters, Serginho Dest, who is starting to play a little bit more at AC Milan. He came on at the half of their loss to Torino this past weekend, played in the second half. Anthony Robinson, who we know is doing very well for Fulham. So those are your starters at right and left back.
Knock on wood, they stay healthy.
So we're talking about the backups then. You've got DeAndre Yedlin, another one of these cases of a guy that got knocked out early in the MLS playoffs with Inter Miami. Reggie Cannon, who's playing in Portugal with Boa Vista. Joe Scally playing regularly for Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga. And Sam Vines playing regularly for Antwerp in the Belgian league. So I think realistically those are the guys that you're looking at, although producer Sean Sullivan threw in Austin Trusty. He's obviously been impressed by his displays with Birmingham City in the championship. So
Stop. I mean, great goal and everything, but no, that's not happening for Trusty. I think it comes down to, obviously Serginho Dest and Robinson, and we know that Serginho Dest can also play on that left-hand side, and we've already seen that. DeAndre Yedlin for sure. And then it's going to come down to 2 of Reggie Cannon, Joe Scally, or Sam Vines. I think he likes. I think he liked Reggie Cannon, but I think it's going to be Joe Scally, and I think he's come back to Sam Vines. How about that? You think so? Joe Scally and Sam Vines. Between those 3? Who do you got? Reggie Cannon, Joe Scally, or Sam Vines?
I think Scally makes it because of his versatility. He's also a guy that can play on both sides. So wait, did you say Yedlin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think the 4 would be Dest, Robinson, Yedlin, and Scally.
Yes.
And by the way, in a list of 26, this might be where one of those extra players comes from. So, yeah.
In which case, I think it would be like a Sam Vines over a Reggie Cannon.
Yeah, I buy that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, this, and again, this comes out November 9th, and Greg Berhalter, I'm sure, is in his laboratory right now with all of these names up there. And look, Greg Berhalter is a strong man, but don't think for a second that he's not human, in that he doesn't hear all of the talk, whether it's from you, Mosse, or anybody else out there, when it comes to Tim Ream. And he's watching Tim Ream play. But there was something over the last windows and in the recent past that has said to him, this is not somebody that we want. And he knew when he started not making that decision there that he was going to come in for criticism right now. Again, this isn't the level of a Landon Donovan, but it sets you up for criticism when you have a player, whether it's perception or reality, and in this case, it might just be perception, a player that is playing consistently, captaining his team in the EPL, and doing very, very well in that type of scenario that is not going to the World Cup. And it's completely fair and justified to ask why. And I think Greg Berhalter many times has said this is why, whether it's a question when it comes to Tim Ream, or even in the past when it's come to Joe Scally and stuff like that. And Joe Scally's worked his way back. But I also wouldn't put it past Greg Berhalter to tweak us on November 9th with some surprise types of picks, which would be fun and good. It will make it that much more interesting when it comes to that. And we will, again, have a show immediately, taping a show immediately after. It will be live with myself, you, and our friend Stu Holden, right? Is that the case?
Correct.
Yes.
And Kat Donnelly producing that day.
Yes, exactly. So you know it's going to be good.
Yep.
So we'll do that. All right. Anything else, Mosse?
That's it.
All right. Let's take a real quick break. When we come back, we will round up all of the action on the field that occurred over the last few days, and there was plenty of it. Welcome back. All right, let's check out the weekend's action, and there was all sorts of stuff going on, including the semifinals of Major League Soccer's road to MLS Cup. And we know now that LAFC will be hosting the Philadelphia Union. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, LAFC versus Austin and Philly versus NYCFC. Where do you want to start?
Let's begin in the West,
okay,
where LAFC notched an emphatic 3-0 win over Austin. Arango with the first goal, heading in a Vela corner. I'm going to continue to sing this guy's praises. That's now 32 goals in MLS, including the playoffs, since his debut in August of 2021. Only Mukhtar has scored more. It was 1-0 at the half somehow, because LAFC should have been up a lot more. Stuver kept Austin in the game. LAFC outshot them 16-1 in the first half. But the second goal finally came, another Vela corner, Uruti with an own goal. And then Opoku added the exclamation point. So 3-0, LAFC finally reach MLS Cup. I continue to be amused that we treat this franchise like they're the 2004 Red Sox, as if, it's been this long wait. It's only their,
it's relative to the way that they entered the league, Mosse, with the glitz and the glamour and the sexiness and the money and the stadium and the celebrity ownership and all of that kind of stuff. So this is what this, not just this team, but this club was created for. And you can talk about Supporters' Shield all you want, but the only thing that ultimately matters in Major League Soccer is winning MLS Cup and having that moment when the confetti comes down, the music plays, and you have that money shot holding up the MLS Cup. And LAFC is going to get their opportunity. This was comprehensive. From start to finish, I don't care what Austin says. And yes, the Austin faithful, this is an incredibly successful season. You should be incredibly proud of Josh Wolf and Claudio Reyna and all the players and all the work on and off the field that went into making it this successful for a very young, green, team when it comes to Major League Soccer, and a dramatic improvement from year to year. And we'll see if that can be sustained going forward. But on the day, to your point, Mosse, there was only one team on the field. And I actually was a little disappointed in Austin as how well they played through the season and how well we have come to expect them to play. They picked the worst possible moment to play their worst possible game.
There was one flashpoint, I should say, at 2-0, second half, Fagundes taken down by Ibeaga in the box. Should have been a penalty. They reviewed it, somehow didn't give it. So even
Well, hold on. Should have been a penalty in what sense? Because it's not like anything was missed because of the age in which we live in. Referee made the call or didn't make the call, which is a call in and of itself, right?
Right.
Is called over, and we know, I don't know, there's probably a percentage out there, but we're talking probably in the 90s of percentiles where you are called as a referee and said, hey, we think you missed something up here in VAR. You should go and check this at the monitor. 90-something percent, I don't know what it is, that usually results in the justification of VAR saying, hey, you missed something. But there's always with the caveat that ultimately it is the referee's decision on the field. And he or she may go over and see what those in the VAR are seeing and still make the decision to go with what he or she decided in that moment. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. Referee looked at it, said, I hear what you're saying. I understand. This is why I love to be able to hear what they are ultimately saying. I'm thinking he said, yep, I get what you're saying here, but I'm going to look at it as it actually was more of a dive, and you look at the second thing. Now, we can disagree. There is still a subjective nature to it, but I don't think anybody, including LAFC faithful, would have felt that it was the wrong call in that moment to point to the spot. And would it have changed the game? Yeah, it changes the dynamic dramatically. 2-1 is very, very different. The only, I am only consoled by the fact that it was so comprehensive from LAFC that this didn't change who the better team was on the day. And that the better team won, in totality, I can accept that. And I understand that you can feel aggrieved if you are Austin right now. And from a league perspective, it's not a great look, but at least it didn't result in an inferior team gaining an advantage and going on.
I mentioned it was Ibeagha taking down Fagundes. He came on for Chiellini at the half. Bale didn't play at all, which again underlines this point we've been making. LAFC were already the best team in the league, and Bale and Chiellini, for all the fanfare around those signings, they were a nice to have. They weren't a need. And in the end, those guys ended up being a non-factor. The signings that really made the difference for LAFC this season are the ones they made in the offseason: Crepeau, Ilie Sanchez, Acosta, Hollingshead, which for a franchise that's been all about glitz and glamour, it was getting a bunch of solid MLS veterans that I think gave this team a different feel this season and ultimately resulted in them being an MLS
And
Cup.
credit to Steve Tarandolo and John Thorrington behind the scenes for making the decisions. And even in that moment when there is pressure to play the big-name stars, not playing them and being okay and still getting the results. I did an appearance last week with Mr. Bale, and he was very, very nice, and we talked about his situation, and he said he had a problem and that he was getting ready to play, but it's been a long time since he has played right now. Now he might just be preparing for the World Cup, but from a MLS perspective and an LAFC perspective, he is a complete non-factor at this point. Now, to your point, is he a nice to have? Yeah, and maybe he'll play a part in MLS Cup. Who knows? But they are still, in my estimation, the best team in Major League Soccer without having him start, let alone play, and certainly without having Chiellini, although he has started more and played more. And I think it just shows, to your point, how well they have constructed this team. All right, 3-0 for LAFC, and they get to host MLS Cup on Saturday. Other semifinal.
So then we go to the East. Philadelphia hosted NYCFC, a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Final, which NYCFC won against a highly depleted Philadelphia side that was minus 11 players due to health and safety protocols. This time around, they were virtually at full strength, although Alejandro Bedoya was there in name only, and he should not have been on that field. It was 0-0 at the half. NYCFC take the lead early in the second half. Maxi Morales with a wonderful strike. Then shortly thereafter, Andre Blake makes an incredible save on Collins to keep it at 1-0, which Jim Curtin said afterwards was the key moment in the game for him. Yep. And then Philadelphia blitzed them with 3 goals. Carranza, Gazdag, and Corey Burke, who had come on. So Philadelphia take it 3-1. Listen, Philadelphia is the better team, But NYCFC have to really be kicking themselves because there was a moment there in the second half where they had really settled in and were in control, and then they fell asleep on a set piece. They got caught making a substitution, a change that a lot of people are questioning, taking Pereira off in that moment for Parks. And then as Parks is running on the field, they're not quite ready. And give Glesnes credit, MLS Defender of the Year. He took it quickly and played a lovely through ball to Carranza, who scores, and that turned the game on its head. A couple of minutes later, Carranza with a knockdown, Gazdag 2-1, and as I mentioned shortly thereafter, Corey Burke put the exclamation point. But yeah, NYCFC, I was texting with Ian Joy afterwards. He was very frustrated because he felt like this was one they let get away.
They absolutely let it get away, but credit to Philadelphia. And I love the first goal that ultimately got them back into the game, and then 2 minutes later they score from that. But that first goal, the recognition in that moment from Glesnes to see that the opposition was out to lunch mentally. And we see this all the time. And coaches talk about it, but sometimes it's easier said than done on the field because you do take mental breaks. And in those lapses, there are moments of opportunity. And that Philadelphia recognized it and executed in that moment. I think it says a lot about this team coached under who I think is just a phenomenal coach in Jim Curtin, that they took advantage of that. We see it on throw-ins. We see it at different moments. And it's surprising that more teams don't try to take advantage of that lapse in concentration that happens when the ball goes out of bounds or when there is a stoppage in the game. And so I loved that, and that's what kicked them on. And then look out. Like you said, they came. That place was rocking last night. Both environments, by the way, in the semifinals were incredible, in L.A. and Philadelphia. So ultimately, Philadelphia gets the win. Wonderful comeback there. Pigeons, successful season. We all know about the trials and tribulations that they've had, losing a coach and losing Tati up top and all that kind of stuff. But they let one get away here.
One final postscript on their season before we move on to MLS Cup. There was a first iteration of NYCFC that operated the way a stereotypical big market MLS franchise operates, signing David Villa, Frank Lampard, Andrea Pirlo. Somewhere along the line, they pivoted to this approach of really feeling like a vessel in that city football group network, and it's much more now about signing younger South American players. And generally speaking, I like this approach better. I think it fits more with where MLS is at in 2022. Yeah.
I don't.
And it's been successful for them. They won MLS Cup last season. They were 25 minutes away from getting there again this season, so it's hard to knock it. But I will say, the way they handled the Castellanos departure this summer, that approach caught up with them a little bit because, he wanted to go to Europe. They couldn't find anybody to meet their asking price, so they just moved them to another one of their clubs in Girona. He actually played against Real Madrid this weekend. We'll talk about that game in a minute. And then they didn't replace him because I guess that didn't fit into their overall strategy. But I feel like a franchise that's hyper-focused on winning would have gone out. You just lost the best center forward in the league. You would have tried to make some big signing to replace him, and they didn't because, I don't know, I just feel like that's not how that franchise operates where they're hyper-focused on winning trophies. It's more a part of this larger network of shuffling players around, and the fact that they've been successful is sort of a bonus, but it's not really, you know what I mean? Like,
I get what you're saying. I just see NYCFC still as a way station, and I don't want a New York team to be a way station for anywhere. And I'm not saying that you can't develop players and players can't go on to other things, but when that is part of your strategy as a New York team, I think that's problematic. And this is what, in any other league or scenario, a final between New York and LA would be something to salivate over. And yet here we are with Philadelphia playing LA, and that, for a lot of people, including myself, is probably the preferred matchup. That shouldn't be. That shouldn't be. You are New York, okay? Act like LA, whether it's LAFC or the LA Galaxy. I don't need New York acting like a small market type of team in any capacity, in any sport.
Yeah, when they lost Castellanos, remember, Luis Suarez was out there, and I mentioned on this podcast that I thought it made some sense for NYCFC to sign him. And then I kind of felt stupid right afterwards because in talking to different people, they said, no, that's not even a thing that they're thinking about. That's just not what they're about right now, that they're going to go and get a Luis Suarez midseason. But,
it's not that you can't be successful. And obviously, this team won MLS Cup last year, and, that was that moment, that 3-minute moment away from possibly going on to another MLS Cup. That's not what I'm talking about. You can certainly be successful. I'm talking about living up to what I expect from a super club relative to a city like New York, which is not what, let's be honest, they or the Red Bulls have done. And it's by design. And don't ask me to be happy with it when you don't live up to that just because you're successful on the field. I think that if you are New York, you need to be both successful on the field and sexy and doing big, bold, arrogant things, because that's what I expect from anything in New York.
All right, so NYCFC's title defense is over. It will be LAFC hosting Philadelphia Saturday on Fox. We'll be there covering that match. It's the first time since 2003, Chicago-San Jose, that you've had the number one seed in each conference battling an MLS Cup. Also, the first time since Seattle-Toronto in 2016 that we have an MLS Cup between two franchises that had never been there before. So, really exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
It is, and we should... the soccer gods, to a certain extent, have smiled upon us because this is a rarity, as you mentioned. 3 times in the entire existence of MLS have we had both the number one seeds actually play, or third time. This is the third time, and that's amazing. And it's been almost 20 years since it happened. And yeah, the structure of the league, can help that out. But we know that it's very difficult to parlay the success of a regular season into the success of the postseason. And here we have an MLS Cup featuring the best 2 teams in Major League Soccer through the year. I think whoever wins this game on Saturday, which, by the way, you can see on Fox, whoever wins that game actually has a claim to possibly say that they are the best team, or I guess have the best overall season from start to finish in what they have done. And they couldn't have approached this in any more drastically different ways in terms of their ethos and their philosophy as clubs. And that is on display too, where the David and the Goliath, the big versus the small, the big market that is LA, and the glitz and glamour and the stardom that is LA, and the celebrity and all that kind of stuff, with the meat and potatoes and worker mentality of Philadelphia. All of that is going to be part of the narrative into this Saturday's game, and I can't wait.
Now, I totally agree with the first point that you made. We've talked recently about this eternal debate between the Supporters' Shield and MLS Cup, and which team has a better claim to have been the best in the league that season. Well, that goes out the window. I think even Matt Doyle would acknowledge that with LAFC and Philadelphia having finished level on points, Philly had a much better goal difference. LAFC had more wins. That's the first tiebreaker, so they took the Supporters' Shield. Okay, they have nothing to apologize for that. But it was kind of a wash in the regular season between these two teams. So whoever wins this game, I think, has a 100% claim to having been the best team in the league.
But when you are in the midst of the dog days of summer in Major League Soccer, and you have folks saying that this game doesn't count, or there's nothing on the line here, and you drop points here, or you have a bad game here, remember that, because it can come back to either haunt you or provide you with, in this case, the opportunity to host MLS Cup. And don't tell me for a second that LAFC hosting MLS Cup against Philadelphia is not an advantage. Now, is it going to play out? I mean, Philadelphia absolutely can beat LAFC, but Philadelphia would much rather play the game in Philadelphia. When we saw why, with the power and energy that happened in Philadelphia, they're not going to be able to get that, and they're going to have to fly all the way across the country to Los Angeles into that cauldron at the bank, right? And it is going to be fun to see. And again, just be thankful that we have something like this, because not all MLS Cups have been as exciting, and I think rightfully and anticipated as this one.
And they did play a great game in the regular season, May 7th, 2-2 at Bank of California. They also played that incredible game a couple of years ago, which was the last match we did before the pandemic. Amazing? Yeah, so there's some recent history there that would lead you to believe this is going to be an exciting final.
And both of these coaches are really interesting in and of themselves, as I mentioned, both of these clubs. And we'll talk much more about MLS Cup in some coming episodes here. But I'll leave you with this. Steve Cherundolo came on the State of the Union at the very beginning of the year, and the first question that I ever asked him was, "Why do you deserve this job?" He had come off of, let's be honest, a forgettable and very unsuccessful stint with Las Vegas in terms of his first head coaching situation, certainly in the United States. And he was given this incredible gift. and a lot of different interesting moves ultimately through the year, a little bit of a dip, but ultimately he came good in the regular season, and in the postseason has come good. And if you were to cap it off with an MLS Cup, you're looking at, we're coming into November, December, and the World Cup, and who knows if Greg Berhalter is going to continue on. When you're talking about both of these coaches, I think that they will absolutely be on the list, and Jim Curtin just continues to do it year after year after year, with less, by the way, than others. Much less.
And that segues us perfectly into Europe, because another coach that people have been talking about as a potential successor to Berhalter with the national team is Jesse Marsch.
Yep.
He was in big trouble at Leeds, but had a phenomenal victory this past weekend as we begin our European review in the Premier League. Leeds 2-1 winners over Liverpool at Anfield. They got a gift early. Joe Gomez, misplaced pass. Rodrigo pounces 1-0, but then Salah equalized minutes later, and you had a lot of time to play, so you figured, Liverpool are going to push on here and win this game, but Leeds held out until the end, and just when I thought, wow, they're going to get out of here with a point, they did even better than that. Somerville with a late goal, 2-1 Leeds, Jesse going nuts, he lives to fight another day. How excited were you for this result?
I was so excited, and I think a lot of people were excited, and I care about Leeds, okay? And, other than, Leeds has kind of lived long in, 70s and 80s culture. It was one of the first teams that was actually branded over in the U.S. that came on my radar and consciousness. But it's not like I follow Leeds, or let's be honest, care about them. When the guy was sitting on the bucket, that was kind of cool every once in a while to see that. But the reality is I don't care about Leeds, or I didn't care about Leeds until now. And why do I care about Leeds? Because, somebody asked me that on Twitter after this game. Why do you even care? Well, I care because Leeds is an EPL team, okay, that is coached by an American. By the way, an American who is under fire, and had that not gone well this weekend, there's absolutely every chance that he would have been fired. This is a Leeds team that is starting 2 American U.S. men's national team players that absolutely are going to be on the field, in Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson. Oh, and by the way, 3 former MLS players on the field. And this is a Leeds team that just beat Liverpool away. So, yeah, I'm an American, and it makes me happy, and it makes me proud of my country that this happened, and that it happened to good people like Jesse Marsch, like Brendan Aronson, like Tyler Adams. Now, they live to fight another day. Jesse Marsch may eventually get fired, okay? But in this moment, sing while you're winning, right? And stuff will happen tomorrow, but I'm going to dance right now for my countrymen who are having success in this league and in this environment, and unprecedented success that hopefully is going to lead to more credibility and more acceptance and more opportunities on the field and off the field. So you're damn right I care.
And by the way, Adams and Aronson both played well. Aronson hit the crossbar in the first half, so good stuff all around for the Americans. And this one for Liverpool, their last 2 Premier League games, defeats to Nottingham Forest and Leeds. They are miles off the top, 15 points behind Arsenal, 13 behind City, and they're even digging a hole for themselves for top 4. So they really got to get themselves sorted sooner. This season's going to be a disaster.
Get it together, Klopp. I mean, look, he's not going anywhere. He's got incredible cachet, and it is interesting to. It's always interesting when personalities and characters that we have seen act a certain way in the good times, how they then act when things aren't so well. And, Klopp is talking about, you have to really look at the whole season. It's not fair to judge us right now. You have to judge us in the whole season ultimately. No, that's not how the world works. That's certainly not how sports work. I'm not going to wait until the end of the season and judge you. Yes, I will be judging you at the end of the season, but it doesn't preclude me from judging and everybody else judging you from a game-to-game basis when you play well, and in this case, when you don't play well for multiple games and you lose, with all due respect to Leeds, you lose to Leeds at home.
Arsenal 5-0 winners at home over Nottingham Forest. They had a little wobble lately, and a home game against Forest this weekend was just what the doctor ordered. So they remain 2 points above City, atop the table. Martinelli scored an early goal, and then they did a nice thing. They all did this tribute to Pablo Mari, who's a defender who's on the books at Arsenal, but on loan with this Italian side, Monza, and he was involved in a terrible incident where he got stabbed in Milan.
Crazy.
Looks like he's going to be okay, and so the Arsenal team more or less dedicated this victory to him, which was nice to see. Saka got injured. Reece Nelson comes on, and all he does is get 2 goals and an assist. So happy times for Arsenal there. And then Chelsea were away to Brighton, which meant a homecoming for Graham Potter and Marc Cucurella, and it proved to be a disaster because they got hammered 4-1. Cucurella was awful, a couple of own goals. Graham Potter unveiled this lineup with Pulisic and Raheem Sterling as wingbacks. It did not work. Pulisic ineffective, as was the rest of the team. To be fair, he had a bad miss in the first half and then got subbed off late in the game. So I don't know what to say about this one from a Chelsea perspective.
Well, I guess glass half full, Pulisic started. Where and how he was employed was interesting, even though, I mean, it wasn't like he was playing right back. All right? He was all over the place and very, very forward. But ultimately, this was a horrible performance by everybody. I guess the only thing that I could that I can use to excuse it was the horrible uniforms that they were, the nudes that they were wearing out there, which were they should never ever wear those again. When I want to talk about Chelsea, but yeah, I mean, not a good look for Chelsea and not a good look for Christian Pulisic, who gets a start, which is all great, but in the start they lose and they lose bad.
Next weekend, by the way, Chelsea host Arsenal. Huge game. We'll preview that in our second pod of the week here. Looking forward to it. In Germany this weekend, this looked to be the weekend when Bayern were finally going to surge to the top of the table. They hammered Mainz 6-2, and that put the pressure on Union Berlin, who had to beat Gladbach at home to stay in first place, and Union Berlin trailed for most of that match. They got an equalizer with about 10 minutes left and then scored a winner deep in stoppage time, 2-1 victory. So they remain 1 point above Bayern Munich in the standings. I think we both think they're just delaying the inevitable there.
They are, but they're sticking around, hanging around.
Joe Scally started for Gladbach, played all 90 minutes, but the bad news for U.S. fans, Pefok started ineffective, subbed out around the 60th minute. That's now 8 straight games without a goal, and he has just 1 in his last 12. He got a couple of assists here and there, which allowed people to try to preserve a positive narrative around him. But I think this was the weekend where a lot of people took a step back and said, actually, he hasn't been that good. And listen, I know he's doing it at a higher level than guys like Sargent and Pepe, 2 guys who, by the way, failed miserably in the Bundesliga. But nevertheless, a lot of the Pefok argument was, wouldn't you want a guy that's brimming with confidence and feeling good about himself? And that's not really the case right now, if we're being fair about it.
Well, no, the argument is, wouldn't you want a guy that's scoring? Whenever we talk about these forwards, it's relative to them putting the damn ball in the net, okay? And so if that is what your argument is for Pefok, then why would you? He hasn't scored in 8 games. And I don't understand that. Now, there are those that say yes, but he provides a different look, and I am one of those. Does it have to be Pefok? I don't know. But if your argument is always, well, this guy's scoring and this guy's scoring, or if your argument against a player is, well, he's not scoring, then if it's just about scoring goals, then Pefok shouldn't even be on the plane right now, okay? Because he's not in form. He's not scoring. Now, I know I'm being a little flip and simplistic when it comes to this, but I just, in particular, and maybe relative to anybody else or any other position, it's about scoring goals. And if you're not scoring goals, then don't make the argument that he should or shouldn't be there relative to putting the ball in the back of the net.
In France this weekend, PSG beat Troyes 4-3, wild one at the Parc des Princes. Messi and Neymar put on an absolute show. Messi scored with an incredible strike and then had a beautiful assist to Neymar, who had a nice finish. Neymar himself, in addition to that goal, had a nice assist to Carlos Soler and then had a highlight reel play. I don't know if you saw this. There was a play in the second half where he dribbled past like 4 players and then had this incredible twirling pass to Mbappe, who
It deserved.
Unfortunately, the shot was saved. Otherwise, that would have been like goal of the year stuff. Conceding 3 goals to Troyes, though, is something that you don't love if you're a PSG fan.
But we're just going to score more than you. That's okay. But
yeah, Mbappe did get on the score sheet from the penalty spot. So those 3 guys, their numbers are all bonkers this season. They're all flying going into the World Cup. We're going to play it up as a big 4 with Ronaldo, but you look at Ronaldo's form versus these 3. I mean, one of these is not like the other in terms of how they're entering the World Cup. Messi, though, I don't want to bury the lead here. he was in the news today. There's this English journalist, David Ornstein, who's very good, very reliable, writes for The Athletic, does like a news and notes column every week. And the first item today was about Messi potentially going to Inter Miami. According to Ornstein, there are 3 options on the table for Messi, whose contract with PSG runs out at the end of the season: extending with PSG, going back to Barcelona, or going to Inter Miami. And Ornstein says of those 3 options, the Inter Miami one right now is the likeliest. The talks are at an advanced stage. So 2023, we could already see Lionel Messi playing in MLS.
Yeah, Mr. Ornstein coming out here, and this is the most kind of definitive, and therefore, I mean, social media, it's the world we live in today, so what is credible? I don't know, but, ultimately, this is as clear an indication that at least the possibility exists of this happening. And I think I'm here for it, you're here for it, especially in, the situation of where Messi is and coming off of what presumably is going to be his last World Cup, but also playing very, very well and playing almost free and heading into his golden years here with a beautiful and warm aura around him. So I still think that you can get an incredible player, and you're going to have to pay for it here, as opposed to Ronaldo, that is heading in the opposite. We didn't mention Ronaldo earlier, but you did briefly hit upon him. How do you solve a problem like Ronaldo, right? I mean, relative to Messi again. Just quick before we move on to the rest of the stuff, do you think that Cristiano Ronaldo is going to have a good World Cup, and do you think he will be with Manchester United come the window in January?
First off, I don't think he will have a good World Cup. And secondly, I think it's quite possible he leaves in January.
Quite possible, or yes or no? Don't give me a quite possible.
I would lean yes.
You don't think he has a good World Cup, and you think he leaves in January?
Yeah.
How do you solve a problem like Ronaldo? How do you hold a moonbeam in your hand? All right, here we go.
All right, one more note.
Sorry, I digress there. Go ahead.
One more note before we leave France. We talked about all these U.S. injury problems. One player who was injured and seems to be getting healthy at the right time is Timothy Weah. He made his first start of the season for Lille. They lost 1-0 to Lyon, but still, seeing Timmy out there is good news for U.S. fans. We ventured to Spain, where Barcelona away to Valencia. No Yunus Musa. He was suspended due to yellow card accumulation, which is a shame. I would have wanted to see him play against Pedri and company. It would have been a good test for him. This match...
Should I just say, given what La Liga is, if you get a suspension, that's the one game that you want to play against Real. If you're not playing for Real Madrid or Barcelona, those are the 2 games that you actually want to play. So it sucks for Musa that the suspension came against the actual one of the 2 teams that you actually want to play in La Liga.
This looked to be headed for 0-0, and then in stoppage time, Rafinha floated a beautiful cross to Lewandowski with an acrobatic finish. So Barcelona took it 1-0, which was a nice result for them coming off their European disappointment. And they're now just 1 point behind Real Madrid in the La Liga standings, because Real Madrid held to a 1-1 draw by Girona at the Santiago Bernabeu. Controversy, Real Madrid leading 1-0 in the second half. Vinicius Jr. had scored a goal, and then a corner kick for Girona. It smacked off Marco Asensio's arm. Nothing called initially, but VAR reviewed it. They determined it was a penalty. Carlo Ancelotti not happy with that decision. That's how Girona equalized. And then even more controversy late, Rodrigo had seemingly scored a winner for Real Madrid, but it was ruled out because I showed you the play.
Yes, I saw it.
The referee determined that the goalkeeper had possession of it, so Rodrigo was not allowed to kick it out of his hand. And I'll give Ali Moreno credit on ESPN Deportes. He was all over this, knew exactly the rules. And letter of the law, I guess that is the right decision. But even the Girona coach afterwards, Michel, who came out and said, look, I guess letter of the law, you have to rule that out. But my conception of how the game should be, like, that should be a goal. He even admitted it. I mean, what was your take on that play?
My take is that goalkeepers are protected at all costs. They are like Fabergé eggs relative to the game. And I get it. I understand. This is the one about possession, right? I mean, what's possession for a goalkeeper? And did they have possession? Do they have a finger on it? Do they have a fiber of their being that is even in the proximity of the ball and therefore equates to possession? Yeah, who was the guy that made the comment? Michel.
Michel, yeah.
Michel. I agree with Michel in that I can't argue it relative to the letter of the law that exists right now, but I can argue that the law is BS.
In Italy, Napoli continue to roll 4-0 winners over Sassuolo. Osimhen with a hat-trick, Kvaratskhelia with a goal and 2 assists. They are now 5 points clear atop the table, and they're away to second place Atalanta next weekend. So that's another great game for us to preview in our second pod of the week. Looking forward to that.
Napoli,
yeah.
Okay. I mean, well on their way to a Scudetto, okay. I mean, still a long way to go, but okay. There's things that can happen. Are they... Because this is an incredible team right now, that it's flying, that seems really balanced and comfortable. Where do you put them in terms of Champions League?
I think they're a contender. I
Right?
really do.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm not crazy.
And if they win the Scudetto, it'd be their first since 1990, the days of Maradona.
Right.
So what a story that would be. And we'll end in South America this weekend, more precisely Guayaquil, Ecuador, a city that you're quite fond of. Yes. The Copa Libertadores final took place on Saturday. All Brazilian affair. Flamengo defeated Atlético Paranaense 1-0. It was kind of interesting. This game was 0-0 late in the first half, and Atlético Paranaense had a center back sent off, Pedro Henrique, rightly so, for picking up a second yellow. They were going to sub on a center back, but they were so close to halftime that Scolari, their manager, decided, why don't we hold off? We don't want to burn a substitution window. And sure enough, in first half stoppage time, Flamengo took advantage of there not being another center back on the field.
So he got burned for it, but Jim Curtin didn't get burned for Alejandro Bedoya when he did the exact same thing at halftime. All right, got it.
Gabigol scored, which is interesting. Flamengo have played in 3 Copa Libertadores finals since 2019. Won 2, lost 1. They've scored 4 goals across those 3 games. He has scored all 4. He has been by far the best player in Brazilian domestic football over the last 4 years. His numbers dwarf anybody else. And yet, a week from today, when Chichi announces the 26-man squad for the World Cup, I suspect there will be 2 Flamengo attacking players in there, and neither of them will be him. It's going to be the other striker, Pedro, who finished as the top scorer in the Libertadores this season and was voted the best player in the competition, and is a type of striker that fills a void in Brazil's squad more so than Gabigol. And then the playmaker, Everton Ribeiro, who provided the assist for Gabigol's goal this weekend. He's a guy who's benefiting from Philippe Coutinho's catastrophic form for Aston Villa this season, so I think he's going to get a spot over Coutinho. So you are going to see a couple of Flamengo players in that World Cup squad, but it won't be Gabigol, which is interesting. Speaking of World Cups, in Brazil, talk has already turned to the Club World Cup, and folks are already projecting a Flamengo-Real Madrid final, but I'm having to remind them, wait a minute, you might have to get past the Seattle Sounders first.
Yes.
But the field is filling up. We already know 5 teams: Real Madrid, Flamengo, Seattle, Auckland City, who won the Oceania Champions League, and then I think it's pronounced Wydad Casablanca, a Moroccan team that won the African Champions League.
We still don't know where, right?
We still don't know where. You know, it's interesting. I'm speculating about something I know nothing about right now. But
never stopped me.
Yes. There continue to be strong rumblings about the next edition taking place in the United States. And in recent editions, the field has been 6 regional champions and the domestic league winner of the host nation. If they went by that, then this LAFC Philadelphia MLS Cup is also for a spot in the next Club World Cup. But I'm going to have to reach out to MLS this week and get some clarification on that. But nevertheless, I do look forward to the Club World Cup every year. I know others don't, but we'll see. I mean, I've heard February, the Brazilian media thinks March. You're going to have to work around Real Madrid's Champions League knockout stage fixture. That's going to be really tricky how they're going to do this. But there continues to be talk about that taking place in the United States, and we have an MLS team in it in Seattle, and I think might perhaps have a second one too. We'll see how that goes.
Educate me and the rest of the world here that doesn't know. Paranaense, right? Am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing it right?
Atlético Paranaense.
Paranaense.
Yeah.
What's Paranaense mean? Is the name of the place?
Yeah, it's they're in the state of Paraná. So if you're there, if you're from there, you're Paranaense.
All right, cool. I'm not pronouncing that correctly, I know. It's okay. Your dad is laughing his ass off right now.
No,
yes, it's okay. Anything else, Mosse?
No, that's it.
All right, we'll take another quick break. When we come back, it's time for Ask Alexi. Don't go anywhere. Okay, welcome back. It's time for Ask Alexi, that point of the show where you send us in your questions or you use our State of the Union podcast hotline, which is 657-549-2297, 657-549-2297. Or you use that hashtag Ask Alexi out there on all our social media platforms. And again, our handles are SOTU with Alexi. All right, I think we have some voicemail and some Twitter questions this week, right, Mosse?
Yep, let's start with a voicemail.
Hey, this is David calling from Atlanta. Big fan of the show. I know this is the State of the Union and not the State of Mexico, but my team, Pachuca, is playing in the Liga MX final against Toluca. I'm very upset with the team in terms of the prices for the final match. It's priced at 1,700 pesos. That's about $85 US, and that is extremely expensive for a typical resident of Pachuca. It would make sense for a high price in cities like Mexico City, Monterrey, Guadalajara, where there's higher economic activity, but that price range is very elevated for a typical Pachuca fan. It's a very working class team, so I'd like to know what your thoughts are on ticket prices. I don't know how pricing works in Europe for teams that are more working class and smaller fan bases. I'm so happy that they're at the final, but with that sort of pricing, we've been criticized because our stadium has very low attendance, and many fans have cited that the tickets were just too expensive for them. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
All right. Well, thank you, David. Thank you for the question. This is an evergreen type of topic, and I know it's specific to where you're talking about, but every country and every city and every market and every team recognizes that it's actually a skill and an art in terms of setting price, and sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they don't. Ultimately, whether you're talking about Liga MX or anybody else, this is a business, all right? This is not a charity. And in a capitalist type of situation, you are going to balance wanting a good environment in your stadium, which in and of itself has a economic value, with maximizing the opportunity that you have, which is that sweet spot of the ticket price makes you money, and enough money where you're comfortable from a business perspective, but also creates an effect that people are in your stadium. It doesn't always work like that, and I think that's what you're talking about here. But we talk about it. We talk about it over here. And when it comes to different markets, you got to understand your market. And again, this is not a charity, but I think sports teams in general recognize that they are an extension of the community. And what happens in their games and the environment that is creative is a reflection of their culture and, like I said, of their community. And to the extent that you can, marry the two, that is the business and I guess the community or social responsibility that you have, that's the sweet spot. But it's not always attainable. And we've seen it with the United States Soccer Federation at times. Sometimes you have to adjust and impact and affect behavior when it comes to buying tickets. And so sometimes you have to go through situations where you purposely set it above in the past in order to establish a new norm. All of that doesn't change the fact that there's certain people that are going to be priced out. And in an ideal world, would you not want that to happen? Yeah. But again, that's a charitable type of situation as opposed to harsh business realities and decisions that ultimately have to be made for the moment and for the future. Because if somebody buys a ticket at a certain price, they are going to expect that price on a continual basis. And until you actually force them to alter their behavior and alter what they feel is the norm, it's very, they are going to expect that. And if and when you change it, there is going to be what we talk about sticker shock. And if you are not smart and learned and skilled and understand your market, that sticker shock is going to lead to either less money or less people coming, or it's going to be that momentary shock, and then they adjust and they accept that new norm. So I don't know what ultimately the situation was with Pachuca and the Toluca games there, but you want your final to be sold out. You want it in terms of what it represents and the message ultimately that it sends. But you also don't want to paper the house, because that, again, can cause problems directly or indirectly in the moment and or the future. Anything else, Mosse?
Well, to anybody that can't afford to go to a game, all I would say is maybe you should have worked a little harder.
Oh, wow. Look at you, Mosse, coming in.
But just to let people know what occurred in that final that he alluded to, Pachuca made easy work of Toluca. They won 8-2 on aggregate, 5-1 in the first leg, 3-1 in the second. So they are your Liga MX champions. Their 7th title, first since 2016 when they were led by young Chucky Lozano. This time around, they had Nicolas Ibanez leading the line, which I've been thinking about this lately. The same way that Argentinian number 10s have kind of found a home in MLS over the years, it's a similar dynamic with these sort of journeyman Argentinian center forwards in Liga MX. You have all these guys like Nicolas Ibanez, Julio Fuchs, Rogelio Funes Mori, Juan Dineno. They're all kind of the same profile, and they all seem to thrive in Liga MX. So congratulations to Pachuca.
Congratulations.
Another voicemail.
Hi, Alexi Mosse. This is Keith from Hendersonville, North Carolina. Just listened to your podcast about the winger and striker position for the U.S. men's national team, which got me thinking a little bit. So I went back and looked at the goals that were scored by the men's team starting from January 2021 up to the present. Out of 31 goals, only 9 of them were scored by the number 9 position, which got me thinking, is this a position that we should really be that concerned about if only 29% of our goals are coming from that one position when you're looking at, who we have to score, both at the defensive side of the ball, midfield and wingers as well. So I was just curious to hear your thoughts on that. Is this number 9 position something that we should really be concerned about given the lack of production from there and the large production from other areas on the field? Love your show. Curious to hear what you have to say. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Keith. Nerd alert, Mosse. He went and did some calculations there. I do appreciate the work that Keith did. Is it that it's, I think he came up with 29% of the goals are actually scored by our strikers or our forwards up there. Okay, I get it. But yeah, we do want somebody up there for a number of different reasons. That the wealth is being spread, fine. Okay, but in general, that position is someone that I want putting the fear of God into the opposition. And we don't have that. And where does that fear come from? When it comes to Erling Haaland, for example, you're worried about all the different ways that he can put the ball in the back of the net. And unfortunately, the U.S. has not had that now for a number of years. And it doesn't look like that they are going to have that going forward. If this was by design, if Greg Berhalter had said, you know what, we're not going to worry about that position. And as a matter of fact, we're going to do everything we can to spread it out. So every single player out there isn't in double digits when it comes to scoring. Everyone's scoring 5 to 8 types of goals. And in totality, when you add it all up, we got enough goals to cover everything that's going on. Yeah, in a void, that sounds good, but the benefit that you have from somebody who is consistently scoring goals is that person takes a lot of attention and frees up a lot from others out there. So I appreciate the calculation here. I don't think that it's telling us anything that we don't know. And I don't think that it should be telling us that we shouldn't worry that there is nobody up top scoring the goals. I hope, if it's Jesus Ferreira, for example, I hope that not only is he being dangerous up there, but he's being dangerous in the form of scoring goals. Mosse, anything?
Well, the only thing I'll say is everybody loves to bring up the Olivier Giroud example from the last World Cup. He started up front for France, scored 0 goals, and they still went on to win the tournament. So it can be done.
But he is a goal scorer still, okay? I mean, maybe not par excellence when it comes to the best in the world, but he still is up there to score goals, even though in that capacity, in that moment, he didn't.
He's actually about to overtake Thierry Henry as their all-time leading scorer.
There you go.
To your point.
There you go. Listen, we haven't done a bunch of Twitter questions or over the last couple of weeks, so I wanted to throw a couple in here. So what do we got first, Mosse?
All right. First up, USMNT versus haters.
Okay.
With the news about a potential team in San Diego, how many MLS teams does it take to force the league to adopt a relegation system? At some point, we're going to have too many teams in the league.
Well, I don't think that we're going to have too many teams in the league, and I don't know if we can have too many teams in the league. There can't be too many teams, I think, in the MLS portfolio in a country our size. If there is ownership out there, either single or multiple ownership out there with enough money and with enough vision and with enough, let's be honest, power to bring MLS into a new market, why would you ever want to stop that if you are MLS? But I will say that a intra-MLS pro-rel scenario, a la MLS 1 and MLS 2, I think as you get into the 32 teams, it should be considered. But the problem remains. It doesn't change, even if it's an intra-MLS pro-rel thing. The evergreen problem is that you still have to convince owners to voluntarily change and add risk. So how do you convince an owner who's paid, at this point, a lot of money, right, to buy into a league that mitigates the risk of relegation, to voluntarily accept to add it? Even in intra-MLS, nobody is going to want to be in MLS 2. And I'm not saying they can't be successful. I'm not saying they can't, be popular. But that's, I think, the problem. But I do think that when we get into the 32 teams, realignment or a different type of structure relative to the size is going to have to be looked at. But it's going to be interesting going forward, because this league was founded on not making the same mistakes of the NASL, and part of that was it expanded too much and too quickly. However, I think we were in a very, very different time, and I think that MLS is going to continue to expand, and as it does, I think it will look for creative and different ways to structure the league, and whether it's with conferences or whether it's with a intra-MLS promotional relegation type of thing, they'll do that. But keep in mind that, the zealots that are out there, the pro-rel zealots out there, they look at that as a bastardized version of pro-rel. And so they're not going to be satisfied until they burn everything down and start anew, and everybody gets to, live in the house that you own and built for free.
And finally, one more Twitter question. Brock E says, feel like Thomas Dooley doesn't get mentioned enough.
Thomas Dooley, love it.
What was he like playing with in '94? Did he influence you as a player at all?
What a wonderful, kind, gentle man. And he came into a team, we were all very young, and literally young, but also very naive. And this was a battle-hardened type of guy who came into the U.S. national team. And look, he, like a lot of dual nationals, recognized that this was his pathway into a national team and obviously a World Cup. And there was no resentment at all. We didn't begrudge that, because as a matter of fact, he came in, he made us better, and he was part of the group immediately. And he was this incredible, even though at times he had already played years and years in the Bundesliga, and much more as a kind of a center back defender, he came in as a much more defensive midfielder for us. And in the same way that, well, not the exact same way, but in the way that Weston McKennie kind of ghosts forward now, Thomas Dooley was incredible at ghosting out of the midfield where nobody could track him or see him, and just arriving in the box late and being really, really difficult and valuable in an attacking capacity. But also, man, oh man, when that guy tackled you, you and your ancestors felt it. And it was all. Quick Thomas Dooley story. In the 95 Copa America, we were down in Paysandú, Uruguay, where we set up camp. And at one point, Thomas Dooley goes out and he comes in contact with somebody who is selling a vintage, and I'm talking like Model T-ish type of era car. And it was in mothballs and everything like that. And he goes out and he sees this person in Uruguay that's selling this car, and he buys this car and has it shipped back to the United States. True story. It was amazing, the stuff that went on during that Copa America. And if you ever get a chance to sit down with him, he's a funny dude. And man, oh man, you want him on your team because he would run through a wall with you. Wonderful servant of the game, and just a wonderful friend and teammate. The great Thomas Dooley. Good question there, Brock. I appreciate it.
Was that before or after your semifinal defeat to Brazil in that tournament?
Oh, yes. You had to bring it up. All roads lead back and through
Although
Brazil.
Brazil subsequently lost to Uruguay on penalties in the final.
Yes, exactly. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, let's take another quick break. And when we come back, I'll give you my one for the road. All right, welcome back. It is the end of our show, and at the end of each and every show, I give you my one for the road. And some congratulations are in order, Mosse. Congratulations to the entire organization up there in Portland. The Portland Thorns, your 2022 NWSL champions after winning 2-0 against Kansas City Current, who were not expected to be there, so congratulations to them on even making the final. 2-0. League MVP Sophia Smith got the opener in front of a sold-out crowd in the neutral site there in D.C. It was fun to watch on national television, and ultimately, like I said, Portland prevailed. It goes without saying that this has been an interesting and at times difficult year for the NWSL and for women's soccer in general, and that they finish it off on a high note on national television in front of a big crowd and with a worthy champion is a good thing. I hope and pray that we are heading towards a situation and a moment and a future where we can continue to talk about how great the product is on the field, how exciting this league is, and how much progress that it is making. I don't know about you, but at times it's exhausting, the NWSL, with all of the different things that are happening, with all of the problems that they have had off the field. Sometimes they can't get out of their own way. I know that efforts are being made to fix and adjust and progress and to move on in a better type of environment on and off the field for these women and for this league and for women's sports and women's soccer in particular, which is what we're talking about here. And the quicker, the better. Because as I said, I want to love this league. This is my league. At times, I'll be honest, it's difficult with all of the clutter and all of the stuff that is going on. And that's not to say that it should be ignored. But the reality is that this is a professional sports league. And ultimately, I want to celebrate and I want to champion and I want to praise and I want to be awed and entertained by this league and everything that happens on the field. And yes, to a certain extent, everything that happens off the field in terms of the positive nature of growing the game, not just the women's game, but growing the game and my league when it comes to women's soccer going forward. And so here's to a better future. And here's to a league that continues to grow. And even with all the trials and tribulations and the difficulties this year that NWSL has faced, there are a lot of wonderful stories and a lot of positive that has come out of this year, and a lot of growth relative to this business and this fledgling business that all professional soccer leagues have been and continue to be, and continue to push that boulder that we talk about out there. And NWSL, like any other league out there, needs as much help as it can get. It needs as many champions as possible, and it needs as much support as possible. And anything that is turning people off, anything that is making it exhausting to care about or to follow is a problem. And so here's to getting rid of all those things and going forward in a positive way. And so another NWSL season in the books. And that in and of itself is a success given some of the past failures and the past leagues that have gone out of business. This is not going out of business. Is, I think, and I hope, is going to continue to get bigger and better as we continue on forward.
And I would just add one last thing.
Sure.
I mentioned the men's Copa Libertadores final. We also had the women's final this past Friday, the Copa Libertadores Feminina. Palmeiras of Brazil beat Boca Juniors 4-1. So congratulations to them. So big women's soccer stuff going on.
What a surprise that you finish off with another Brazilian nugget there. It's wonderful. But before I let you go, Mosse, real quick, we are, as we said, less than 3 weeks before it starts and 3 weeks before the U.S. takes on Wales from the day that we were recording on this Monday, October 31st. Are you still going with Argentina as your pick?
Yes, I am.
If I gave you the opportunity to change it right now, would you change it?
No.
Okay.
I think it'll be either Argentina or Brazil, and I slightly lean Argentina.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I am going with Brazil. Well, you got something to say?
A week from today, when we tape our podcast next, I mean, we're going to do a second one this week, but then when we tape the one next Monday, although it might be Tuesday, we're figuring that out.
It'll be out for folks, though.
Nevertheless,
we'll figure out a way to get it to you.
Brazil will have named their World Cup squad, so we'll have that to discuss. I'm sure I'll have some thoughts on that.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for downloading and reviewing and rating and doing all the different things that you do out there on all the different platforms that we have. We're doing good things, Mosse, in terms of the people that are listening and the people that are watching, and we can't thank you enough for the time that you spend here with this State of the Union. We will talk to you again next week. Happy Halloween out there to everybody out there. Hope everybody has a good Halloween. And until next week, and as always, size the day.